In today's episode, we are going to see origin and history of one of the widest used instrument known as flute or basuri in India. To give us information about this particular instrument, we have specially invited very well-known basuri player Pandit Ronu Mujumdar ji. Namaste Ronu ji.
Namaskar. Yeah.
We want to start with the origin of basuri. That is, from which century perhaps the basuri was invented or used.
It's a general belief that a lot of people think, and the general idea that Lord Krishna is the symbol of Bansuri or Bansi or Murli. There are many names, but that's also not true, because this instrument is one of the most, probably the most ancient and old instrument. Before even Lord Krishna was born, like around 5,000 years back, still there, before he was born or he came to the planet as a god, worshipped as a god and believed as a god, Bansuri was played, Sushir Vadya or blowing instrument. Because the general idea or the general study or general research proves and brings the idea that when there was nothing in the world, still there was sound. And that sound was definitely sound of wind, because it's a nature. And also, if you go to the forest of the bamboo, you can see the small insects and pets. They carved small holes in the bamboo. And when the wind passes through, it sounds like many people are playing flute simultaneously. So definitely, Bansuri is as old as the world is. So it was, when there was nature, there was Bansuri. There was, of course, there was a different form, differently blowing technique was there. So Bansuri has a very, very interesting history and very interesting natural background. It's called grassroot instrument. Like why we call Veena and Venu. If you see the original Veena, it doesn't have the pumpkin. It has the definitely grass, the tumba. So Bansuri and the Veena, they come from the grassroot, means from the earth. It's an earthy instrument. That's why this instrument is connected with your body, and it's a very, very pastoral instrument, and connected with the not only folk music but also tribal music. So this is how the flute was. The human mankind always was getting ideas from the nature. So it is believed and definitely the truth, because there cannot be another truth, that when the wind passes through, the mankind definitely thought that if the wind passes through and the sound is coming out of the bamboo, if we blow, of course we are going to get the same sound. And that is how the folklore Bansuri started in the villages. And you would definitely, interestingly, must have seen in the Haat Bazaar or in the Mela, there is a direct flute, also known as Murli, or in a different areas, with different region, different name. Jodia Pawa in Gujarat, Algoja in Punjab. I will show you how the Algoja people definitely not hold like this. But there are two flutes, 3 notes here, 3 notes here, and of course here it is like a clarinet kind of old style. That's called the original shape of the Murli, and they will put both the flute inside the mouth, so that one Algoja can hold one note and another one can play like this.
Okay.
It's very interesting. And same way, Rajasthani folk has a satara, and in Tripura, as Burman Saab told me, the senior Burman, SD Burman Saab, that flute was known as Tipara flute. So there are many kind of flute. Also, you will see in Maharashtra, in the folk music, in the Launi and other things, there Bansuri is there. But of course, the idea of playing Raga Sangeet, I would not say classical music, the Rag concept. Now, first of all, we have to really think whether the lok music comes from the classical or classical music comes from the lok sangeet. The definite idea is the classical music is a structured and conceived kind of music. Raga is structured by the knowledgeable people or saint, or the old people, but lok sangeet was always there. So raga sangeet or rag concept, structured rag sangeet, comes from the folk music. So therefore this instrument was always there in the folk music. Now the rag sangeet, how should the raga play on flute? This was the last century's gift to our field, and this such a pastoral and such a earthy instrument was brought into the classical music. And now it's very interesting that we are shooting this wonderful episode. The great we say the pioneer of bansuri as a classical instrument, late Pandit Pannalal Ghosh, my father's guru, he took this initiation, and around 1930, that's why I was just remembering the year, now we are celebrating his 100th year. So around 1935, at a very young age, as Nayanda told me, he was just swimming in the Bangladesh, that time India was one, and he found a piece of bamboo in the river. He was a good swimmer, and he started playing it. And then was, of course, a small flute, not a deep sound. So I'll just give you the idea of the sound. This is the murli or bansi or bashi in Bengali. You will see even in Lord Krishna's hand or any folklore sound. Now I'm using this sa, but this sa was not there. Whoever is playing want to conceive any sa, it can be sa, this can be sa, this can be sa, start anywhere. So sa was established by Pannalal Ghosh. Can you imagine what a contribution to this instrument? Just imagine if this becomes sa, of course, then you get the full scale. At least low pa you can get. I'll just play the scale. This sa was established by Pannalal Ghosh. And now I can get 2.5 octave very easily. That's the middle octave sa, Madhya Saptak sa. Now I'll go down. And now I will go high pa. Like that you can go. That will be very loud, but I can go all the way up to high sa. So this sa also was conceived by great Pannalal Ghosh. Now how to get this deep ragas like Darbari Kannada or any rag in that matter in Bansuri? This is sounding wonderful for light kind of piece like Tumri, Pahari, or Pilu, or that kind of music, or bhajan in that matter. But then great Pannalal Ghosh thought about the big Bansuri, and that's called the bass classical Bansuri. And this is the one he started. It can be E, which is called Safed 3 or White 3. It can be E flat, around that kind of range. And the sound, of course, became much deeper and very suitable for classical music, because rag development needs some kind of depth. You just cannot play the folk sound and create a rag. So I will just play scale on this, and you will see the difference and the depth in the sound. I will just play Bilawal That, since we are talking about the thought and scale.
Now, as you very nicely explained the origin of flute, and basically flutes are constructed by using bamboo.
Right.
But one question comes in mind that if we look at the variety of flutes,
Right.
there are some other materials also which are used while making flute,
Yeah.
like some metal is used. So, can you give some information about that?
Yeah. For the original traditional bansuri is very pure. Still, we have not used any metal or any such thing. Or this is the purest instrument. We say shank and bansuri. That's why one of my bansuri is called shank bansuri. Even the shanai will have some patti or some kind of horn, like which is metal. But bansuri is the purest instrument. You will see this is just piece of bamboo, and there is a hole here for blowing, getting the sound, and there are 6 hole. I'll talk about that later. How there is 6 hole technique is there, and 7 hole technique is there, which I play, and I will really focus on that. But at present, I'll tell you, we just is threading is very important because it just holds the bamboo, and we when we travel and go to the different kind of weather, sometimes it's we travel into the minus degree and then 28 degrees, so it can crack. And here it is a cork, just after this blowing hole, so that the sound doesn't go there, and we get the sound just goes this side, the downward, not the upper side. And that is the same way the metal flute technique is there. But the metal flute will not have, when you peel the bamboo, जब आप बैम्बू को छीलते हैं तो आप देखेंगे बहुत छोटे 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 उसमें एकदम ना दिखने वाले होल्स होते हैं. That's why you get those resonance in the bamboo, and you don't get that kind of resonance in the metal flute. And metal flute will have keys into it, which is called Western jazz. It's called the actual name is concert flute, because that is the flute which is around 400 years old. And that flute will not have glide into that. That's a technical part. We'll talk about that. And because of the key, plain notes are very nice, but the glide and other things, mean and khatka, will be very difficult to play in that flute.
Now, what type of bamboo is used? Any general bamboo can be used, or there are any specific varieties of bamboo that should be used?
Generally, 3 places are very popular for bamboo in India. One is the number one is of course Assam Silchar. All these are Assami bamboos, and second number is Kerala, Nilam. I think Nilambur, or it's very deep in Kerala, and those bamboos are also good, but not as good as Silchar and Kannada. But what happens is, because of the weather condition or whatever bhogolic reason, the region is simple, that the Silchar bamboos are very, very straight and very hollow, and you get one piece. I mean, there is no knot in between. If there is a gant which is called knot in between, then you cannot get one piece. I mean, sometimes this is E, this is C sharp, means Kali ek, black one. So it has to be very, very straight. If you can see, it's very straight. And there, as I said, there should not be any knot. And another thing, it has to be seasoned. If the bamboo is very fresh from just taken from the grass, then it is not seasoned. What flute makers do, just put the bamboo in their, in the house, the open area where it just goes through the rainy season, summer, cold, and then it becomes really seasoned, which is called matured bamboo or paka hua bans. Then the sound is perfect. And these bamboos are very seasoned bamboos.
Ranuda, when we see this flute being played, you also demonstrated. First basic question is, as this is a blowing instrument, how do we blow the air into that and get some note out of it? That is the main fundamental question.
The blowing hole is here. It takes sometimes 1 month or 2 months just to get sound out of it. So this is where you blow. There are different way of blowing. Some people just keep the flute little bit here, and blow very differently. But basically, it should be in the middle, and this is the place automatically God has given just to place the flute here, and so that the air goes inside. And if you don't close any hole, according to Panna Babu's structure, which is now followed by everyone in the world, if you don't close anything, that's a Tivrama. Yeah, this is Tivrama. That's why when you bring all this Ga, Re, Sa, we are now on the Sa. And you just lift first finger here, Re. I'm not talking about the Komal or Shuddha Madhyam, just Tivra, everything open. And everything close is Pa, or this is a better sound. This will be a perfect Pa. Now you start lifting from this side. Up to the Pa, you are in the middle. Then, be careful. While playing the Dha, you cannot afford to just keep this one open. Otherwise, the sound will be really weird. That's no sound. So, remember after Pa, when you lift this, remember to close this one. That is how the structure is there. Then I'll talk about the blowing pressure, how we get the high note just without without lifting any finger. That's another part of it.
So here basically when we raise the finger from a particular hole,
you go high. Yeah.
And different notes can be played into that.
Right.
Now, as you mentioned about different octaves,
right,
when we see other instruments like sitar we see, sorod we see,
right,
harmonium we see, there are various strings or various length of keyboard is available
right,
to play different octaves. But flute we can see there are only 6 holes,
right,
and there is some standard length of the flute that is basically used. Then how do we achieve the different octaves?
That's very interesting. Very interesting. This is exactly like vocal. When you say ah, 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 you don't do anything, just put little more pressure, and of course ears are needed, otherwise you will go weird notes. So same thing with the flute. I'll show you, of course, with the help of Tanpura, so there is more perfection in it. I'm doing nothing. I'm just blowing little louder, little harder. More air I'm giving to it. And you will even see, with nothing, I'll get 3 octave. Low was little less, middle, madhya was little more pressure, like vocal, and then for tar saptak, high octave, little more pressure. So it's exactly like vocal. And that's why with this 6 hole, you can get 18 notes or 18 different range and this kind of
things. So we can say that as we blow air into the basuri, basically there will be an air column.
Exactly.
Which will vibrate on particular frequency.
Absolutely.
As we lower the pressure, the lower the note will be produced. When you increase the pressure, the vibrations of that particular air column will increase and you can get the upper pitch. That's the technique that should be used in playing Bansuri.
And also one very important aspect I want to focus on, that Bansuri tuning is still kind of a little hazy kind of subject, because as whatever the perfection you achieve, still you can always get out of tune. That's why for tuning purpose, this is the, up to my mind, because I have played other instruments like sitar, sarod, harmonium, tabla I played. Vocal, of course, my main strength. So I think flute still you can go out of tune, because if you blow little less, how you can get, I mean, it's not nice to play out of tune, but I'll show you. This is a nice tuned flute by a wonderful flute maker in India, but you will see I can go out of tune right away without making any mistake. Just little unmindful and little more pressure and you can go out of tune. All the time you have to keep listening yourself and be on tune. It's a very difficult subject. Bansuri is always an exam. I mean, you have to just listen yourself and then keep playing.
For playing different kind of music, means to play Indian classical music, plus to play semi-classical music,
Right.
or to play light music, or to play folk kind of music, same type of bansuri can be used, or you have to use different kind of bansuris. Maybe the length might change or the breadth might change, anything like that.
Yeah, it's very interesting for bansuri. As the length keep increasing, the note goes down. Also, the diameter keep increasing means you can get the deeper note. If the E is 2.5 feet long, then the C sharp, which is the lower note, after E you go to E flat, then D, then C sharp, which is Kali ek. Then the length you can see around 4 inches, around approximately, bigger than that, and the diameter is also kind of bigger, and so you go deep. And as you said very interestingly, you can use different flute. That's the advantage flute has, and that once it is made, you cannot tune like sitar. You can tune. Okay, little fine tuning. Flute, once it is made, you can never tune it. Little bit you can adjust with the blow by 1-2 point, but you cannot tune it, and that's a weird part of it. But that's the truth. And another thing, that flute, you can change the flute and play with various musicians. Like if you are playing a jugalbandi or duet with a vocalist who is on C sharp, then you can take a C sharp flute. And if you're playing with a female vocal, you can just take a natural, which is a 4.5, and safed che or white 6 flute. There are D flute you can take with the string instrument, and really that kind of advantage I don't think any other instrument has. And that's why I could really play many kind of jugalbandi. Maybe there will be a world record maybe coming year. I played many vocal, and this is the flute I played with Dr. Balamurali Krishnan recently, the living legend I was touring with. So this is the C sharp flute.
While you're showing this particular flute, I can see another hole which has been available in that thing.
Yeah.
Why this kind of hole is used, or where it can be used?
That's very interesting. In the bansuri playing, there are 2 techniques. One is called 6-hole technique, which is a folk technique, which was more popularized by Pandit Bholanath ji and from Allahabad, and that was followed by Pandit Hari Prasad Chaurasia ji and his students. And another technique which is the most more older technique, and which is Panna Babu's technique, and which is called 7-hole technique, where you also use the little finger, which I follow and many people follow like me. And the advantage is in this technique. Both the techniques are good, but at present I'm talking about my way of playing. So what happens is you get the lower tivrama, which is a greatest advantage for because I play both the technique, and I just respect. I mean, it's just a subject of discussion. And kind of ragas like Shri, which without Tibra Madhyam in the low, you cannot make phrases like, can I give an example?
Yeah,
Shri,
sure.
just how it starts, which is hardly played in the flute. I don't think anybody would dare to touch Shri very easily, but can be played with this technique very nicely. Rema Sangati is very important phrase. So Rema Pada Magare. You can see how important this becomes. Like Shri, there are many ragas, like Puriya, where Mani is very important, one of my most favorite rag. If you just really just imagine without that, Puriya doesn't sound like Puriya. So I think I was very lucky to be introduced to this finger technique by my father, late Bhanu Majumdar, who did not play flute as a profession. He was a great doctor and one of the greatest painter of his time. But he played as a hobby. But I got my first finger technique from him. So this is a very interesting part of Bansuri, playing both the style.
In today's episode, we have covered some basic information about flute or bansuri, the origin of bansuri. As Panditji explained, it was basically invented by humankind by looking at the jungles, the bamboo jungles, where we can get the flow of wind and we can hear some sound that comes out of those particular bamboos. And from very ancient days, maybe 5,000 years before or even before that, flute was used in some basic kind of music at that time, later developed to use in various kind of music, and from last century it has been developed as an very well-known instrument in Indian classical music. Thank you, Ronuda, for giving us such a beautiful information.
Such pleasure, and it's really it's a very nice thing that we are doing for this great instrument.
And in next part, we would like to know much more about this particular instrument from you. So we are waiting for that. Thank you
So much.